if the life you are living right now is not actually yours? Not in a dramatic sense, not in the way of stolen identity or external force, but in a quieter, more unsettling way. What if the values you hold, the goals you chase, the person you believe yourself to be, were all assembled by someone else long before you were old enough to consent to any of it? Sit with that for a moment, because most people, when they first hear this, feel a small flicker of resistance. And that resistance itself is worth examining. Where does it come from? Why does the mind rush so quickly to defend a self it has never truly inspected? Here is something interesting about the human mind. It does not primarily seek truth. It seeks consistency. Psychologists call this cognitive consistency, the deep, almost biological need for our beliefs to align with one another, and for our actions to align with our beliefs. The mind is not a philosopher searching for what is real. It is more like a lawyer, perpetually building a case for what it has already decided. Every new piece of evidence is evaluated not on its own merit, but on whether it supports the existing conclusion. This is not a flaw unique to certain people. This is the architecture of every human mind. And once you truly understand this, you begin to see something a little eerie. Most of what people call thinking is actually the defense of thinking that has already been done by others, by culture, by circumstance, by fear. Consider how a belief enters you. You are very young. The world is enormous and you are small. And the people around you, your parents, your teachers, your community, they are not simply people to you. They are reality itself. What they say does not arrive as an opinion. It arrives as fact. And the mind, at that age, has no protective filter. It has no mechanism to say, I will examine this before I accept it. It simply absorbs. So you absorb. You absorb what love looks like, what success means, what kind of person is worthy of respect, what you should fear, what you should want, what you are, and then you grow up. And nobody tells you that the absorption period is over. Nobody hands you a moment and says, now is the time to examine everything you were given. Life simply continues, and the beliefs continue with it, running quietly beneath everything, like code running in the background of a computer, invisible and unquestioned, shaping every decision, every relationship, every moment of joy or suffering. Here is the psychological reality beneath this. The mind is extraordinarily skilled at one particular trick. It makes inherited beliefs feel like personal convictions. This is the depth of the illusion. You do not experience your cultural conditioning as conditioning. You experience it as yourself. The belief that you must achieve something significant to be valuable. That does not feel like a message you received at 7 years old. It feels like a truth you discovered through lived experience. The anxiety that arrives when you rest without productivity, that does not feel like a learned response. It feels like conscience. It feels like you. And so the cage becomes invisible. Not because it is hidden from you, but because you have come to believe that you are the cage. Now here is is where the logic becomes truly interesting. Most people, if you ask them, will say they want to be happy. They will say they want peace, meaning, authentic connection. These desires feel genuine because they are. But watch what happens next. Watch how those same people then organize their entire lives around things that make happiness contingent. On approval, on achievement, on certainty, on being right. Why would a person who genuinely wants peace spend their life in the exhausting project of controlling how others perceive them? There is only one logical explanation. At some level, they truly believe, that the approval of others is necessary for their survival, not metaphorically. At the level of the nervous system, at the level of the deep, unexamined belief, it feels as dangerous to be disapproved of as it would feel to be abandoned. And to a small child, abandonment is death. The adult behavior is rational. It is just responding to an outdated map. And the map was never questioned because the map was never even seen. So why don't people question it? Because questioning a belief is not a purely intellectual act. It is an emotional one. To question whether you must be successful to be worthy does not feel like solving a logic puzzle. It feels like standing at the edge of something vast and terrifying. Because if that belief is wrong, if you have been organizing your entire existence around a false premise, then what? Who are you without it? What was the suffering for? The mind will do almost anything to avoid that question. It will stay busy. It will argue. It will find reasons why this kind of reflection is self-indulgent, or impractical, or simply unnecessary. I don't have time for philosophy, people say, not realizing that the very busyness they are defending was constructed precisely to prevent this encounter with themselves. This is not weakness. This is how the mind protects its coherence. But coherence is not the same as truth. And a life built on coherent fiction is still a fiction. There is a certain kind of courage that has nothing to do with action. It is the courage to pause, to look at a belief you have held for 20, 30, 40 years. A belief that has shaped your relationships, your choices, your sense of self, and ask quietly and without judgment, did I choose this, or did it choose me? That question does not need to be answered immediately. In fact, the greatest mistake would be to replace one unexamined belief with another, only faster. The value is in the asking itself, in the willingness to not know, in the rare and radical act of sitting with uncertainty without rushing to resolve it. Most people never arrive at this question, not because they are incapable of it, but because everything in their environment is designed to move them away from stillness and toward consumption, toward productivity, toward the next thing that promises to fill what they have not yet had the courage to simply feel. You are not your beliefs, but you will never know that until you have looked at them honestly, one by one, in the quiet light of your own awareness. The cage is real. But here is what is also real. You are the one holding the key. You have always been holding it. You simply were never told to look at your own hand. That is where it begins. Not with answers, with a single, unhurried question. What do I actually believe, and why?